John, AJ Hinch has long been a favorite of ours on this show, a friend of this podcast. He's been on multiple times. His team's season just ended. He's kind enough to join us again this week.
Yeah, not only a favorite of ours, but one of the best couple of managers in Major League Baseball. I didn't think they had a team good enough to get where they got, and he did it. And, of course, he managed the classic game of the year, best game of the year so far, that 15-inning game. Unfortunately for him, did not win it, but I'm anxious to hear what he has to say about that game. I watched every bit of it, and I was hanging on the edge of my seat. It was just a fantastic game.
Yeah, we'll dig into that game. We'll certainly dig into the guy who started that game and his future. That's Tarik Skubal. We'll ask about what he thinks about the AL playoffs that are going on and a lot more. John and I will break down the end of the Yankee season at the top. We'll play hit and error at the bottom if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, we're together. We were together that night of Game 4 when the Yankees were eliminated by the Toronto Blue Jays in the division series, but we haven't done a show since then. So it feels like an obvious place, even though it's been several days. Brian Cashman, I believe, is going to speak next week publicly for the first time since the end of the Yankee season, a 16th straight season without a World Series, which is, 100 years in Yankee years, John? So take it wherever you want. Let's have the discussion on it. The season ends, and you're thinking what?
They're just not good enough. That rotation, which is pretty well established, vaunted, outstanding. Fried, one of the best pitchers in the game, just didn't do it. And looking at it now, the Jays are now struggling against a tired Seattle team. So I'm wondering how many levels up the Yankees need to go to really be a contender. I'm in here in Milwaukee right now at the press box. Still here. I didn't sleep here overnight, but got here early and broke in. But the Dodger rotation seems to be in much better shape than the Yankees and probably every other team. They slow played things. The Yankees try to hustle to win that division. They didn't do it. Fried thrown a lot of innings. Rodon had thrown a lot of innings. Maybe the Dodgers have that luxury where they don't have to really try so hard in the regular season and slow play everything. Maybe that's the advantage that they have. But, the Yankees just weren't good enough at all. They got beaten by like 33-19 in terms of runs with Toronto, which is not an overwhelming team. They don't have a great bullpen. I don't think they have a deep rotation. I give them credit for winning 94 games. I don't see them as that talented a team. So quite a disappointing ending for the Yankees.
It is. But, John, can I suggest that one of the things I think happens with the Yankees now when the season ends is it's the accumulation of not winning since 2009 gets layered on every team. And I think, because we did a lot of shows last year, I thought the Yankees earned their loss to the Dodgers. I think they got a breeze in the playoffs when they got, Kansas City and Cleveland, which were layups to get through. Those were not good teams at all. Kansas City was below 500 against everybody who wasn't the Chicago White Sox last year, who lost 120-plus games. And they got a layup, and they had a real Achilles heel all year. It was how fundamentally terrible they were, and it killed them in Game 1 and 5 of the World Series, and they lost the World Series. I do think by the end of this season, the Yankees were an overall better team. I thought they were better on defense. I thought Ryan McMahon and Cody Bellinger in particular really improved the defense of the team. They were at least more of a threat on offense. They hit more homers and scored more runs than they even had with Juan Soto. And I think they had a bad few days. If Max Fried is Max Fried, maybe they win. You are what you are. They got blown out by the final scores. But, I actually think the 2025 Yankees, who lost in 4 games in the division series, were a better team than the team that went to Game 5 of the World Series the year before. And as you think about that team moving forward, I agree with you, John. The distance between them and the Dodger rotation, and really the Dodger rotation and everyone else, and we'll talk about the playoffs in a bit, and that Dodger rotation is huge. But does any of that get closed if it's Rodon, Cole, Fried? You believe in Schlittler, and they could, part of the problem this year also is Luis Heel for a half of last year pitched like Gerrit Cole while Gerrit Cole was out, and we haven't seen that guy since. Was that a mirage, or is he a good starting pitcher? I think there's a way for them to be pretty good again next year, and I thought by the end of this season, they were a good team that had a bad week against the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Yes, next year with Cole and Schmidt, Schmidt won't be there until halfway through,
Yeah.
but their rotation is in excellent shape. Is it the Dodgers? Maybe not. Look at it's the Dodgers at all-time rotation in terms of talent. Maybe it's still the best in the American League, but I'm going to push back on this team this year. They were too one-dimensional offensively. They did score 50% of their runs via the home run. They're one of the two teams to do that. Of course, the other is Seattle, which looks like they may win that league. So maybe that's not terrible. The other thing is that bullpen was not good. It's not a good bullpen, and the bullpen to me is key. I mean, the Dodgers can get away with it. If you got a starter going to go 8 shutout innings, you can probably survive. But they didn't. Yankees didn't have that, and I know the names were good in that Yankee bullpen, but Devin Williams was fine at the end, good at the end, even fairly. But he was up and down throughout the year. Basically, Bednar was the one guy who was great, right? I mean, Leiter was up and down. Certainly, our favorite friend of the show, Luke Weaver, was up and down this year. Not the same guy he was the previous year. I think the bullpen is a key factor, and we have to realize they were well below average as a bullpen. And beyond that, you talked about how Kansas City got in with the White Sox. I mean, look at the Yankees. They did not perform against the better teams, right? They killed Baltimore and the White Sox and other teams like that. They had a losing record against the playoff teams as well. So I think they've got work to do.
Yeah, I think they have work to do also. Now, I'll push back the other way. Is I said the team that ended the season, they played 4 series against what at that time, including Houston, were playoff teams, all finished above 500, and they won 3 of those 4 series late in the year, which really set them up to finish strong then against bad teams. I thought they were the best version of themselves to close the season. And Luke Weaver, who had been kind of their best relief pitcher for 2 years, went bad. I don't know how you defend against that. Max Fried, who is probably going to finish 4th or 5th in the AL Cy Young, went bad in the playoffs. I can't believe I'm here feeling like I'm defending the Yankees. I beat up a team that went to the World Series last year, and I'm defending a team that lost in the division series this year. I just think that they moved closer to it, and I agree. They've got to find a way to put a little more batting average into their lineup. Having said that, John, we get the daily notes from MLB Network. We're looking. First of all, the Blue Jays out-homered the Yankees 9-4 and won the series. And since 2021, it's outrageous. Whichever team has more homers in a playoff game is winning at 88% over the last 5 years. So, you must get the ball out. They kind of didn't get the ball out at their frequency. Stanton, who had been a postseason hero for multiple years, didn't get the ball out. They just didn't get the ball out of the ballpark to kind of hang with the Blue Jays. I feel look, it's an unsuccessful season when the Yankees don't get a parade, especially when they get eliminated so early in the postseason. John, I just think that we're conflating it with all their other failed teams along the way, and I actually think they moved closer to being the kind of better all-around team they need to be moving forward late in the year while being ultimately a failure at the end here.
Yeah, I mean, they may be slightly better than they were the previous year, and maybe they were pretty fortunate to get to the World Series. I'm going to say, I know that we've long held the George Steinbrenner view that it's a failure if they don't get to the World Series and win the World Series and have a parade and all that. I feel like they acted like 2024 was a success. So I think they've lowered that standard. I mean, that standard was a little bit ridiculous to begin with. Boone got an extension of two years off of the World Series loss in which they did not look good in that World Series. So I think they've lowered that standard. And, I mean, really, to compete with these teams, to me, the National League teams were the better teams. Yeah, I mean, certainly the Yankees could have won in the American League. They didn't. And maybe they could have gotten to the World Series, you would think, right? Because they did tie for the most wins in the league with Toronto. But to me, all the National League teams at the top were better. The Dodgers are better. I think the Brewers were better. The Brewers beat the Dodgers 6 straight in the regular season. So they're don't always look at the names. They're pretty feisty, good team. They do little things, but they can hit home runs as well at times. And I feel like the Phillies were better. I could make the case the Cubs might have been better. Obviously, the loss of Kate Horton hurt them badly. I don't know where the Padres better. I don't know how deep you want to go in the National League, but the National League was better. They didn't win the weaker league, so I feel like the bad guy here. But obviously you
No,
liked them better than I did.
no,
What
no.
can I
I
say?
don't, John. Ultimately, I agree with you that it wasn't good enough. I just kind of want to separate. Like, I thought the World Series team was a much more flawed team than the team that actually just got beat here. But why don't we move on to something else that you mentioned? Boone got an extension last year. I think we're both strongly under the belief that the Yankees aren't changing managers moving forward. The Mets' failure led to them doing kind of like massive change all around Carlos Mendoza. What say you about the Yankees? You okay with Boone coming back? And do you think like the failure in the bullpen or the rotation not kind of like being up to it or the lineup not being able to produce hits at the bottom of the lineup? Is this systemic? Is it somebody's fault? What would Jon Heyman, if he was a Steinbrenner, do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Besides
see
be
it.
out on your boat right now instead of talking with me.
I wish I had a boat. Yeah, I don't think they're going to change managers. They just gave him the 2-year extension in spring training. They obviously won the most games in their league. They love him. And it's difficult because, look, you see some of the names that are out there as candidates. Are you going to be able to pick one that's better than Boone? Is he the best manager in baseball strategically? No. I mean, I do think AJ Hinch, who was a friend of the show, and we'll talk to him later, is a better manager strategically. Alex Cora, who Boone got by, I think is a better manager strategically. I think the two guys I'm watching here, Murphy and Roberts, are better strategically. I mean, I probably could name 10 managers who I think are better with the X's and O's than Boone, but he is a great voice and face for the team. I know we make fun of all the euphemisms that he uses, but they love it. They need public relations. He is the guy, and he is very good in the clubhouse. So I just don't see it. If you could tell me who's a great one who they could bring in, who could do it, and I mean, would they bring in Bruce Bochy? I don't know. I don't know. He has won 4 World Series, but he is 70 years old at this point. I don't think they would do that. So I think that Boone is the guy, and I don't think he's the reason they haven't won the World Series. Their team just isn't quite good enough. It's obviously good. I don't want to trashing it, but it has not been good enough. And I mean, my solution, it's not my money, of course, is to spend more. We'll see what happens. But they do need a better bullpen. They need to, and which is a surprise because that's really one of Cashman's specialties is building the bullpen. It did not do it this year. And you're right on the hitters who can get on base, whether it be Luis Ariz, who's a free agent, or somebody else. Little guys who can put it in play. Look, the teams that have put it in play did better than them. Toronto and Milwaukee did better. So just being an all home run hitting team, it probably isn't going to get it done. You need the home runs, but you probably need something more.
Yeah. Look, I think the one guy I would have been interested in already was hired, is Skip Schumacher. I think is a very good major league manager. And if you told me he was still out there, we might have a discussion. But like, there's going to be 10 managerial changes if you include Don Kelly as a managerial change. They stuck with an interim guy this offseason, and we're not done yet. Who knows what happens here over these last few days? We were shocked by Mike Schilt announcing his retirement, whatever that means, with money left on the table.
We're not believing him. We don't believe that one.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. So you and I think alike, and we hear too much, and so. Would you like to be in the swamp of being one of 11 teams who was looking for managers this year when your manager is has the star players' confidence? Aaron Judge has the front offices, most of the front office, certainly the head of baseball operations, Brian Cashman, and the owner, Hal Steinbrenner's confidence. It felt like not the right. Like last year, I think you could have made a case for the team never got better. Like the team, see, maybe this is what I'm thinking, John, is last year's team got worse as the season went along. This year's team felt like it got better as the season went along. Like it's hard for me.
They did some good pickups. Let's not leave.
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned McMahon, but certainly Bednar was outstanding.
And Caballero gave them something on the bases, and McMahon gave them something on defense.
Helped a little bit too.
Yeah. Like I think that
they did well at the deadline, unlike some other teams that shall go nameless, but they did very well.
Yes. Well, John, before we kind of jump out of this segment, the baseball playoffs have continued to go. They began without one New York team, and they're going on without the other, the Yankees. It's hard to ignore that one of these things is not like the other one. You have three teams, one of whom last won a World Series in 1993, and the other two who have never won a World Series in this, and the Dodgers trying to become the first team since the three-peat 98 to 2000 Yankees trying to do it. It's like a heavyweight and then maybe even a super heavyweight and everyone else. And John, for me, you highlighted the key issue here. They slow played their starting pitching all year to get to this moment. We watched them win a World Series last year without starting pitching. This year, if they win, it's going to be because of the starting pitching, not only that they used to begin the games, but probably use like Sasaki and others as relievers for a very flawed bullpen. John, I feel like this is a team that we might look back and goes like 14-2 or 14-3 this postseason because of that rotation and their great players atop the lineup. I think it's going to be very hard for somebody to beat them, even the Brewers, who I think we both admire for their style, their peskiness, that they're better than their reputation. But I don't see it in the American League, and I'm not sure that the Brewers could stand toe-to-toe with this starting rotation in October. You're there. What do you think?
I mean, it's a $400 million team, and it's money well spent, right? People criticize the big money contracts that don't work out. I mean, Ohtani, well worth every single penny of it. I think they make a profit on it anyway, just through marketing and sponsorship. Freeman, a 6-year, $162 million, deferrals, well worth it. Mookie Betts, that was a great deal. I think the CBA was coming at that point. Maybe he just loved LA. I don't know. But he signed a contract that I think was a good deal for the Dodgers. Not terrible for him, but good deal for the Dodgers. And Snell looks like a very good deal right now, too, at $182 million. Andrew Friedman, who was in charge with the Dodgers, knew him as a minor leaguer with the Rays. And, maybe that little bit of information probably helped. The guy, when he's on his game, is as good as anybody. And that's kind of their thing, right? They got guys with the best stuff. And if they're on their game and healthy, tough to beat, right? Ohtani's got amazing stuff. I mean, he's got everything going, obviously, the home run hitter, whatever, marketing, everything else. But Glass now has incredible stuff as well. Yamamoto, I mean, the Mets were going crazy for him. The Yankees, everybody else. I mean, he was a dynamo in Japan. He continues to be one of the better pitchers here. So that formula of getting those great pitchers and then being able to slow play them. I mean, they use Clayton Kershaw as a guy who could win regular season games. Talking about probably the best pitcher of the last 50 years, along with Pedro. He was basically holding a spot for, guys with more stuff at this point in their careers. So, they got everything going at this point. They have versatile guys. They have superstars, obviously, in positions, and their rotation is amazing. They still have an issue, even at $400 million, and they are the best. Their bullpen continues to be an issue. It came in on paper looking like the best bullpen maybe ever. But, of course, Phillips went out with injury. Tanner Scott now out with injury was terrible. Yates was not good. Kopech was hurt. So right now they're using their starters. They got so many great ones in relief. And as we saw last night, it's not perfect. So even $400 million, it's not perfect, but they are the best by far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's an example. It's there. You said something earlier that really resonated with me, John. Historically, Brian Cashman and his baseball ops have done a great job of putting bullpens together. And in a year where if maybe they had one of those bullpens, we'd still be talking about them playing. They didn't. The Dodgers kind of like overloaded on the bullpen. They're hard to put together. It's not always – you watch this Mariner bullpen, which is spectacular. It's not guys who you thought like, wow, they won the offseason because they added – X. Like I'm watching this guy Bizzardo, and I'm like, how does anybody ever hit this guy? And like, where did he come from? And you see, there's like releases and low trades and stuff like that. It's not an easy thing to put together. A bullpen, and the Yankees had traditionally done it and didn't do it this year, and it really cost them. It actually cost the Detroit Tigers some. Also, they never actually figured out their bullpen. They had the best starter in baseball, arguably, at least in the American League. They played a classic game before they were eliminated this year. and we're going to talk to their manager, AJ Hinch, about all that and more if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. We're joined by a friend of the show, somebody who's been with us often, but we do appreciate his season. Ended last week with a classic game. It ended his, believe it or not, his 12th season as a manager, his 5th with the Detroit Tigers. John and I are so happy to be joined again by AJ Hinch. AJ, thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I wish I was joining you from the ALCS, obviously.
AJ, the reason you're not is I almost don't know the question to ask when you play the kind of game that you played in Game 5. Part of it is we're now not used to seeing extra innings the old way, and a game last as long, 15 innings. I was nauseous at home watching it and feeling like somebody is going to lose this game. Just with about a week to reflect on it, go wherever you want. What sticks out from a game that I think will probably be shown on MLB Network forever now for one of the best games we've all ever seen?
Yeah, I think when you're in it, you don't have that perspective because you're just going inning by inning, and half the inning you're trying to create a run, and the other half you're holding on for dear life, knowing that the game can end, your season can end, the series will end, and you don't want that to happen. And so, what's amazing in those games is the player, like how exceptional play out of the players. Like we had so many big things that happened on both sides of the ball to extend that game, and you do feel the difference between the free runner at second base and having to create your own rally and your own opportunities. And so, when I look back at that game, it's gut wrenching because I can think about second and third and one out and not getting a run in, or I can think about bases loaded and not getting a run in, or you think about the moving parts and the benches being used, and you're looking down at your card, and every starter I think that started in that series outside of maybe one or two was in the bullpen and pitching. Like not only were they down there, they were pitching. Luis Castillo and for us, Jack Flaherty and Troy Melton's coming in throwing 100 on one day's rest. He's never done that before. And all hands on deck means something different to everybody, but that game displayed it with some agony on both sides that the game wasn't ending earlier, but nobody wanted the game to end unless it was going to be in your favor.
Hey, AJ, don't look back on it. We don't want your gut wrenched or anything like that. But I mean, is there any appreciation at all for the fact that it was the best game of the year? It's a classic game, or not really? You're just a competitor and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate it as like a baseball person. I said after the game that somebody was going to win and somebody was going to lose, and unfortunately, that somebody was us. That had on the losing side of it. I have such great respect for the players because they wanted it so badly. We wanted it so badly. That game was, that series in itself was, 2 one-run games, 2 blowouts, and then this epic 2 games in 1 or 3 games in 1 or 4 games in 1 where every decision and every opportunity was magnified. I have great appreciation for it. I'm glad I was a part of it. I'm just jealous of Dan and the Mariners who got to advance after that, fly all the way across the country and start the ALCS because our players did so much, to almost win the game, but almost doesn't get it done. And that's the gut wrenching part. But a lot of respect for the Mariners and the series that we played against them, and it's just part of the competition in playoff baseball.
AJ, you hit on it. I wonder if I could just forward it there a little bit. That is a wearying game at the end of a wearying series, at the end of a long season. And then I get it. There's people who are doing minor jobs and stuff, real whatever, but you still have to fly, play. Any level of surprise where we are in the ALCS as we talk, which is Seattle won the 2 games in Toronto on our flying back home with a chance to go to the World Series for the first time in their history?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. That's a great topic because we felt that just on our travel. So we went into the season, we went Cleveland, Boston, back to Cleveland, to Seattle, to Detroit, back to Seattle for Game 5. So we had our own jet lag, so to speak, but you don't feel it till after it's over, the letdown or the crash or the fatigue. I actually think the Mariners had such an energy boost out of that win out of that party that night. They travel, they go across the way, and there's an energy boost. Now, the letdown will come at some point, and maybe it's today on the off day, but going there, I thought they'd have a ton of energy. I just didn't know if they would have the resources to get through the game the way that they did. I mean, watching Bizzardo warm up, watching Brash in the game, Munoz coming in, and I think he had under 10 pitches, I think, in his save in game one. I was amazed by their ability to use their pieces the way that they could. But from an energy standpoint, not surprised at all because you get that boost of adrenaline and excitement and accomplishment that comes with a series win in the playoffs. So second day, maybe a little more surprised because that's usually when the jet lag hits and when some of the fatigue hits, and all they did is put up double-digit number of runs. And Gilbert looked incredible on even though he's supposed to be on fumes, and it sets the Mariners up for either a great opportunity or the biggest trap imaginable, where the series feels like it's in their hands, but it's never over until you win 4 games.
I know it's a lot, and you think about everything, but it was over the 15 innings. Is there one or two things that you wish had gone differently, and one or two things that really stick out for you? I mean, I can't think of anything strategically that you would have done differently, but maybe you do. I don't know. Is there anything out?
Yeah, so I think when over the course of 15 innings, there's always going to be opportunities missed. I mean, I think I look back at, I did, call for a sacrifice bunt, and we got to second and third. Javi gets the ground ball to third base, and McKinstry runs inside the fair territory like you're supposed to, and they complete a play. Like, that's a run scoring opportunity that you'd love to get back. And then you look at it and you're like, 96 with sinks, pretty hard to hit to the opposite field. And then you have 2 outs and a runner on second a couple different times that you want to bloop or you want to blast or you want something to go your way, and it doesn't. And then obviously there's always a few walks in there that create some run scoring opportunities and for the other side, or maybe it's a misplay. But for our bullpen to come in and I think it was like 6 2/3 or 7 innings of shutout baseball prior to the last run, that's pretty epic in itself. And it's not one point of the game or one decision or one opportunity that stands out as much as it's just in those games, you have to go win it. And I think the Mariners won it more than we lost it. Like, I'm glad it wasn't an error. I'm glad it wasn't a walk-off walk, which Tommy had, bases loaded, 3-2 count, delivered the strike, Polanco gets the hit. They won it, with some execution off the bench, with some key hits and being able to push a run across when it felt like neither team was going to score, for the rest of the night based on how the previous 8 or 9 innings had gone.
Yeah, you just think about how the Philly season ended, right? With Kerkering throwing it away, and it just feels like a forever horrible moment. So I'm with you. I'm glad that a team won it as opposed to lost it as I was watching it. I have a question, AJ, that is a question about you, but maybe a larger question. Your season, your actually last 2 seasons are very much like the Mets. Started bad last year, got really good and got in the playoffs, started great this year, didn't do the big move, protected the best of your farm system at the trade deadline, so you didn't do big things. You kind of snuck in at the end, not playing well. The Mets didn't. I was watching it. And so I wonder, I watch the good teams now go through longer periods of not playing well during a season than ever before. Is that recency bias? Does this happen a lot over time? Or do you think something's going on in the game where I watch the Mets fall apart for a long period of time? I watched the Yankees fall apart for a long period of time. Not just 10 games where you go 2-8 or 15 games where you're 4-11, like long periods of time. Is there something in the game right now that is leading to even good teams having sustained periods of really bad baseball?
That's a good question. I don't know that I think it could be recency bias. I also think every team goes through this, and we are now have a magnifying glass on all of those situations, probably at a greater extent than ever before. And we pay attention to a ton. I mean, I've wondered, as bullpenning has become more and more popular, does that wear a team down and create, a disadvantage to where your bullpen's pretty gassed and they're always in on these close games and then you lose. Like, are you getting blown out or are you having close losses? Are you making a few mistakes and then we label that bad baseball, but it's actually just a specific position or just a specific circumstance that's creating some of these losses? Because I look at our September and can see a lot of different things. There were some close games where we didn't put teams away. We left them hanging in a little bit, and then they came up and walked us off in Miami. Or the Mets came to town early in the month, and we couldn't quite squeak out the win. Or we lost to the Braves in the ninth inning, I think twice in a series when we got beat by them. So it wasn't a matter of like getting blown out, although we did a few times. It was a combination of things and the stress that comes with it. Listen, our sport is covered to the highest degree it's ever been in my career. And so players, they feel it, they read it, the coaches, we know it, and you continue to try to push forward. And every team's going to go through it. I don't know why this year the better teams had magnified losing streaks or losing stretches, because I've been on 100-win teams that have had multiple 6 and 7 game losing streaks, which seems almost impossible mathematically, but it's the reality of 162 games. But listen, we were all aware of what September was doing to us, physically, mentally, emotionally, and most importantly, record-wise. Because the first playoff question that I got this year was in June. And if you think about that, like, we hadn't even named the All-Star team, and people were asking me about the playoffs because we were so far out ahead, and mathematically it looked like an impossible hill for another team to climb to come and catch us. And I kept saying, hey, play the whole schedule. Hey, we're going to play the game out. It's going to be 162, because experience will tell you anything can happen in our sport. And the good teams showed vulnerability, throughout the year. And I even used that, what you said about, whether it's the Yankees or the Mets. And I'm like, I've heard every team was the worst team in baseball at some point, right? Like, you heard what's wrong with the Yankees, what's wrong with the Mets, what's wrong with the Cubs, what's wrong with the Astros, what's wrong with the Mariners, and it plagues everybody when it happens at the end of the year. That is by far like the worst timing imaginable, because of the shrinking schedule and the magnifying lens that's put on teams.
You're right. It's a long season. I'm here in Milwaukee for the Dodgers Milwaukee series, and they were the worst team for the first weekend. So everybody was the worst, even though by the end they were the best team with 97 wins, Milwaukee. So you're absolutely right about that. Look, your extension was announced yesterday. There's so many openings. Craig Counsell played free agency for all it was worth, right? And why do an extension? You are, I think, by acclamation, one of the top few managers in baseball. You could probably make a lot more money if you're a free agent, and it would probably be exciting as well. Why do this extension?
Because I love it here. I appreciate the opportunity I have here. I think we are an organization that has a ton of upside in the present, and I think we have a ton of upside in the future. And I love my environment. I get pushed here to be better. I'm super happy being in Michigan and being in Detroit and helping build this organization into a winning franchise again. And so I have great appreciation for stability. I think there's an allure all the time with free agency, whether you're a player or coach or manager. And I'm not sure I agree with you that it's fun, because I think that can also bring a little bit of stress, uprooting your family and taking them elsewhere. But I've been treated incredibly well, by ownership, by Scott, by Jeff here. And it was an immediate yes, because if you're at a place that pushes you and satisfies you, why would you look elsewhere? I am perfectly happy being the Tigers manager, and I want to bring a World Series here.
I think what John meant, it would have been fun for me and him if you were a free agent, right? Like, I don't know that it would have been fun for you. We're very selfish podcast host here.
It's probably more fun for players, when you're a superstar player and you're out there and everybody's talking about it. I don't know. It seems like some of them look forward to it. Managers, it's a little more of a controlled environment in terms of the negotiation. It's not easy, Craig Counsell.
Yeah, I also think, like, when you plant some roots somewhere, and I've brought staff here, I have developed a ton of relationship with the players here. I love it here. So I think for me, it's a, I know there's always curiosity in manager changes. This year, I think we're going to see as many new managers as I can remember in my career, and there's going to be a lot of moving parts. I'm perfectly happy not being one of them.
On the subject of free agency, you like the segue, AJ. Tarik Skubal is going to enter his walk year. And I know the delicate, I watched the clips from the press conference, so I know the delicate line that has to be walked on a player this special to his team, to you, to the fan base of, who's coming up on free agency. And you've got to make that tough decision. Do you just play it out? Do you sign him long term? Do you trade him and max him out here? So knowing you have to walk that tightrope, I wonder if I could phrase the question this way. When you draft this kind of player in the 9th round and he has this success, can I argue, even if you're not going to be able to sign him long term, just play it out? Like, who would have dreamed of, like if he leaves after next year because there's greener pastures and greener dollars someplace else, so be it. But you've proven these last 2 years you're a very good team with a chance to win, and that guy gives you a differentiator. He almost gave it to you again this postseason, a differentiator over everyone else. Why not just say, no matter what happens, we're not trading the guy. We're either playing it out or finding a way to keep him long term.
Well, that's certainly a path. I mean, I think, listen, I get the opportunity to hand him the ball every 5 or 6 days, and that's easy. Like, I love watching him pitch. I love the impact he has on our team. And when you talk about the postseason, when you can set records like that, people talk about, pretty remarkable achievement in its own right. And, as a manager, I end up in sort of the middle of this because I can see, the players and the allure of free agency. I can also see the stability of a franchise, and you have this, I shouldn't assume, I think he's going to win the second Cy Young in a row. And my goal for him is to set him up to win a third. And it's remarkable to watch him go through his day by day. And I've been through this before. When I was in Houston, Garrett Cole was a free agent entering into his last year. We went all the way to Game 7 of the World Series, and he ended up signing that contract with the Yankees. And there are guys that have signed back early. So I guess and it's not trying to hide behind the question, but I get to be the manager that puts him in the lineup. You want him with the ball in his hand. There are some big decisions all over the sport when these type of situations come up, and we're gonna move forward. I don't know what's possible other than I know he can win the Cy Young this year, and I know he can win the Cy Young next year. And there's a lot of banter that's going to go on within the sport when you have a player of this magnitude in the situation that he's in. So I'm going to manage, and I'm going to manage him as long as I'm allowed to. You want him to, to be your anchor on a pitching staff, no doubt. But a lot of that stuff's out of any of our control, and you guys are going to probably have to talk about it a billion times because of the interest level in this type of situation publicly.
Maybe like Cole, he could wear the Boris cap. Corp cap after Game 7 of the World Series next year, AJ.
How come I knew if I brought that up from that you were going to go right to that picture in people's heads?
I'm sorry, AJ. Sometimes you throw the alley and I got to oop.
I was not going to do it, and we've had Tarik Skubal on the show, and he's fantastic. I don't think he's doing that. So not that I know, but I don't see that happening. And you are the manager who hands them the ball, so I'm not going to press you on that. There is another option. The option beyond keeping him and letting him play it out and trading him is to sign him, but we won't ask you about that because you're not the general manager. That's a question for Scott, who we've also had on the show. I want to ask you about a different guy who's got a little bit of New York, I don't know about roots, but he was a stopover, and he actually played well for the Mets, and that's Javi Baez. I thought he was done. I don't know what you did to him. All of a sudden he's a center fielder, and he's a really good one. And then I'm watching your team play, and now he's a shortstop again, which I couldn't believe. What was the magic trick, no pun intended, with Javi that enabled him to become a very good player again?
Yeah, no, he's incredible. And I love being around Javi. I love pushing him. I love the banter he creates around our club. And and the attention that he brings. I mean, this guy in the postseason was as electrifying as he's been as a Tiger, but also in recent memory. You know, I know he when he played for the Mets and leaving the Cubs. I mean, there's so much attention surrounding Javi, and I think that one key was health. You know, this guy had to get healthy, and he went through significant surgery and went through the rehab and came back pretty hungry. I do think the versatility untapped a little bit of hunger and excitement and energy in him when he was learning center field. And I played him at second a little bit. We introduced third base to him. He loves, you know, sort of the challenge of change. But then it got to the playoffs, and this guy was playing incredible defense, putting up really good at bats, and contributing to wins like every day. And so that became a stable part of him. I still think we should incorporate more positions for him and have him be, you know, a difference maker in a lot of different spots. But it's amazing what health can do to your physical abilities, but also just your mental confidence and the knowledge that you know that you're in a good position physically to be better. But obviously, getting to the All-Star game, you know, the fans recognized what he was bringing to the table, and getting him back on the map in the respect that he deserves was pretty awesome to see from my chair. And we challenge him. I mean, I've hit for him. I've hit him at the bottom of the order. I've sat him a few games when things aren't going well, and he always responds favorably to the environment, you know, elevating. Like as the playoffs got closer, he played better. When he inside the playoffs, those were not easy matchups for him when you're facing Kirby and Gilbert and Castillo and the power right-handed arms, you know, that are tough on right-handed hitters. And yet there's the double to left center, there's the base hit to the backside to the right side. Here's the incredible defensive play, and he rises to the moment, and he's got the it factor to go with it. And we've reestablished him as a contributor, which is pretty remarkable.
You know, AJ, I know you're a great guest when we come to the end of an interview like this, and I still have about 10 things I'd love to ask because I'd love to tap in and hear your thoughts. So there's a bunch. Why don't I just do it on this? Because we mentioned it before, that a third of the league is going to change managers or keep their interim guy in the case of Don Kelly. Just on the state of managing now, like there's this belief managers have never done less. I actually would argue managers never do more. You're the lead spokesman for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Owners hide, never before. Heads of baseball operations hide like never before. There's less access to the players. You've got to be able to handle medicine and law and tactics during a game. And whether you're making the tactics or not, you're blamed for them. And I just wonder what you think of the state of managing right now, and is there enough of a pipeline of trading? Like I remember when I first started, we used to know, oh, that guy's going to be a manager, that guy's going to be a manager. There's 10 openings. I don't know who's going to be a manager. I hear college ranks now. I hear broadcast booth. What do you think about the state of managing as we go out? I realize that's a broad question, but we're going to see 10 new ones.
Yeah, we are going to see, you know, a lot of new ones. I'm sure there's going to be some first-time opportunities, which are deserved for the guys that get an opportunity. I think there are a lot of viable candidates who haven't quite been handed the keys to, or the desk, so to speak, and been asked to lead. And then there's also going to be some movement amongst the guys with experience. And you know, I agree with you. I think the managing chair, I mean, just because people have an opinion on what you should or shouldn't do doesn't make managing easy, right? Like we definitely, I watch it all the time where I'm watching these games, and even as a sitting manager, you're watching Doc and Murph and John and Dan go through their decision-making processes. Like I have great respect for what those guys are going through and how impossible it is to set up processes to make decisions and then be judged by the results. And so our job, I think, as managers has grown. It's big. It's a difficult skill set to be able to be a spokesperson on a daily basis, lead a group of varying degrees of experienced players, run a staff, and then align with the front office on the bigger vision of the organization. And so when all those things need to be accounted for when managers take over or managers get extended or managers, come under scrutiny. So For me, I think that the job's never been bigger. I think the influence can be felt. You can see the influences in the different styles in which all of us go about our business. Um, but I love it. Like I love that responsibility to try to be good at multiple aspects of this job and run a successful franchise from the manager's chair in the responsibilities that you're given. And I'm looking forward to seeing how organizations align. You know, there are new general managers in a couple places which are going to redefine what those managing jobs are like. And there's also some surprises. Like no one thought that San Diego was going to be open. I hope Schilte's doing okay, and you know he's definitely taking care of himself. And now all of a sudden, that's an enormous job that can compete right away when it comes to who has access to that job and how good a team that manager would inherit. So fun to dissect all of this, and obviously there are capable staff members all over the league that are going to get asked on, and that's going to create a whole shuffle of coaches all over the league, and that's what the next month is going to be about behind the scenes until things are reported and we see these chairs get filled. So it's one of the best jobs in baseball, despite the stress and the agony and the ups and downs, because you're connected to the players, you're connected to the organization, and you're a central force in driving performance. From the manager's seat.
Yeah, well, you said it's one of the best jobs. You're one of the best at the job. And John and I always, it was a tough end to your season. It's not even a week. And John and I, as always, appreciate you joining us on the show.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Be well.
John and I, of course, thank AJ Hinch, friend of the show, for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
I'm going to give a hit. That crazy play last night, that 8-6-2 double play, force outs at home and at third. By the way, it was funny when they announced that it was a ground into double play. The ball hit the top of the wall. Very quirky. I don't think any of us have ever seen it. Jason Stark was here. I don't think he's ever seen it. So if he hasn't seen it, it hasn't happened before. Really an unusual play, and I know people are going to jump on the Dodgers. Obviously, Teoscar Hernandez didn't play it well because, once it hits stand on third, once it hits the glove, then run in, because it looked like there was a shot that he was going to catch it even off the bat. So obviously the Dodgers didn't play it right, but I give the Brewers credit for knowing what was going on. I give the umpires credit for seeing it. It's why we have outfield umpires in the biggest games. They made the right call. They certainly understood what was going on all along. Ball did hit it off the top of the wall, so it was a force out at home and a force out at third. I think the issue was that the Dodger base runners were looking for a signal from the second base umpire, but there are extra umpires here, and the signal came from the left field umpire, and they didn't see it. They didn't see it, and they didn't know what was going on. They assumed that the ball had been caught because they saw the juggling and that Frelick had come up with it and got confused. I understand that. I'm giving the Brewers credit for understanding what the call was, paying that close attention, and making the play. Ortiz made a fantastic throw home. Certainly, Contreras did a great job getting the force out at third also. So I'm going to call that a hit for the Brewers and the umpires.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. Left field umpire called it right away, that it was a ball in play. John, you know what I kept thinking about how crazy that was is if Teoscar Hernandez had actually tagged up correctly, but the other two guys did what they did. If the Brewers executed it well, they threw the ball to third for a force at third, and then to second for a force at second. I still think the run doesn't score then, right? Because it's a double play on force outs. So there still would have been a way, even if Hernandez handled it well, as long as the Brewers handled it well in order where they went third first and second second. The way it happened was crazy enough, but of course the way my brain thinks, I was already thinking about the crazier version of the play. John, I'm going to go off the board a little here, and I'm going to give a hit to Dan Campbell and see if I could make this a little baseball related. I don't know if you saw the end of the game, what happened. His safety, Brian Branch, slapped Juju Smith-Schuster of the Chiefs with across his head, knocked him to the ground after the game, at the moment where everyone's supposed to be shaking hands, even though they had gone to battle. It was a real cheap shot. It was awful. And Dan Campbell went to the podium afterwards And before taking a question, he called it inexcusable what his own player did, said this isn't how we're going to behave and it won't happen again. Like, he didn't wait for a question. And the reason I'm bringing it up in this forum, John, is we deal with plenty of times where managers, coaches, players do I haven't seen the film yet, or I haven't talked to the player yet, or just because he's wearing the same uniform, they come up with the most bizarre stories ever to forgive bad behavior. Here's something like I hear all the time: you can't be tough on players anymore. It's this generation. If you ever say anything negative, you lose the clubhouse, etc. Dan Campbell went and said, inexcusable was inexcusable. And I am now, when I don't have a horse in the race, I could hardly care who wins. I am now a Detroit Lions fan for the rest of the season, and I'm rooting for the Lions to win the Super Bowl because I deal with enough, and I think you do also, enough nonsense where, because nobody wants to stand up to bad behavior on these fields for fear of losing their clubhouse, they don't call what is happening in front of their eyes in an honest fashion. So I give Dan Campbell a lot of credit and hope people across the sports landscape realize that bad behavior should be called out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I didn't see it. I'm actually proud of myself. Been trying to give up football for a while. Maybe it's just because I'm so ensconced in the baseball that I've been able to do it. I actually did find the baseball at a bar by go walking. I mean, it's the playoffs. Shouldn't the bars all have baseball on? Maybe I'm crazy, but they're all watching a regular season football game. I don't. Was that might have been the game? I guess, right? It was a Monday night game. I saw a hint of it on Twitter. Good for him. I mean, doing anything otherwise would have been ridiculous based on what you describe. I did not see the play, but that sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but all right, yeah, good for Dan Campbell. I like to see some good behavior in football, even if it's by a coach. But I'm going to say it's not going to cause me to root for the Lions or even watch any more games. I'm hoping I stay away. You're not going to be able to do that, I know, but I think I'm going to be able to do it.
You have a much more exciting life than me, John. I've got nothing going on. John, on the subject of good actors, we try to put this all together very quickly because of where you are, where I am, looking into a camera, etc. That's Brian Rakowski here. If you could see it, John, it's Tommy Hogan there. They do a great job at a second's notice to make this happen today. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate, review us, subscribe, leave some comments. It does help the show. If you like the show, please help the show along the way. You could also do that by going to the New York Post Sports YouTube page. We are doing this on camera. You could give us a view, tell us what you think there. And look, we're only about midway through the postseason. We got a lot to do. We'll be doing all the hot stove in the off season as well, if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.